Cool. I think it might get intercepted.
Very well could, especially since I just, mentioned that out loud. Okay, this should be recording there. Let me make sure this is streaming here.
Says meeting is now streaming live.
I believe it's still loading, streaming there. Cool.
All
I think
right.
we are live and my connection is working. Thought I was going to drop out there for a second. Rob Neumann, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me. Really appreciate it, my friend. Quick way to get started. Share with everybody a quick 60-second synopsis on your background and what led you
Sure.
to where you're at in your career today.
Sure. Thanks, Connor. It's a real pleasure to be here. I am a chief marketing officer and strategist, but it's been an interesting way to get there. I started my career in engineering, specifically manufacturing, and then a global career with Xerox Corporation. So I've traveled and worked in Asia, Latin America, Europe. And as I grew in the company, I went and got one of those MBA things in finance. Had fun learning about financial numbers. So I'm odd in that I am a marketer with both a technical and a financial background. I went and built a SaaS company in the CRM space and ran an advertising agency, which is an experience I do not wish to do again. And now am a marketing officer, usually for 2 to 3 clients at a time. And my specialization is around platforming, marketing platforming, whether that would be e-commerce, CRM, product information management, those kinds of things about how to build on the brand that you've made.
What do you think are some of the benefits being an engineer background, but marketing now, being a marketer now?
Sure. I think the main one is, look, the first job of a marketer is to really communicate the value proposition of a company. And I can walk in and understand perfectly what the company does and how they connect to their buyers, right? So I primarily specialize in business to business. And I understand the financial buyer, the engineering buyer, as well as the sales and marketing piece. And all three of those are the major influencers on what buys B2B. If you're selling a manufacturing product into a distributor, it's not about convincing a consumer. It's about presenting the relevant information to convince a CFO, a CIO, and a CEO.
What was it like transitioning your career that way from engineer to marketer?
Yeah, honestly, it was a lot of fun. My career has been about kind of following two things: my heart and the money. So, so, fortunately, they've gone hand in hand. But I was fortunate in that, my father said, "No, you aren't going to do anything. You're going to engineering school, son." And I was really happy about that. And But I did it, and I found out engineering was not like it is in school. In fact, no career is really like what you learn in school. So I actually had a fabulous global career based in engineering and supply chain. I was able to work in treasury and currency as a finance major, and it's given me a global perspective. Then I figured out that I should learn to sell on someone else's dime rather than mine. And I did that. I got an e-commerce career. I got a marketplace career in the energy industry. And then I went and formed my own companies. And that was probably the right thing to do, because there isn't a single entrepreneur who isn't the lead salesperson of their company.
One of the mysterious worlds out there is B2B e-commerce, which you're an
Mhm.
absolute expert in. And I think in talking to you prior, your understanding of engineering and my understanding of friends who are in e-commerce for consumer products,
Mhm.
you got to be engineer minded to be
Mhm.
successful with that. It's very complicated stuff. But what is the B2B e-commerce success breakdown look like? What does that even mean, first off? And how do you implement B2B e-commerce?
That is a great question. Um, and I'm leading a 4-hour conference on that, Connor, on June 24th. And thank you for letting me plug
You
that.
can break that 4-hour conference into 20 minutes today,
I
right?
I can. I really can. Actually, B2B e-commerce, okay, here is the basic difference between consumer and B2B, right? And that is it's not that we don't require photos. We do. It's not that we don't require UX. We do. The basic underlying pieces are more complex. And let me give you why. All right. First of all, um, technical products and B2B products tend to have much more variation, SKUs, and much more complexity. So if I took a product, any product whatsoever, a toaster oven, for example, or that you want to sell to a distributor, right? You're going to have end products. You're going to have product variation. Most manufacturers will take the same product, give it different small differences in order to sell into different markets. Most manufacturers aren't selling in one country. It needs to be multilingual, multi currency. But then often they'll sell, let's say, replacement parts or what we would call assemblies. All right. So I might have to have a little toaster oven shelf, but I also might sell an entire heating element and just the heating elements to another toaster oven manufacturer because they may not OEM everything, original equipment manufacturer. So you can sell parts, assemblies, full products, replacement products, and you have to be able to understand the hierarchy of it. And it goes from everything from beautiful product photos to actually engineering drawings and engineering specifications that you've got to provide. In addition, most B2B manufacturers have more payment options. Okay. I'm not just taking your credit card. I usually have a purchase order set up. I might have bank transfers. I might have, some sort of terms that's different for every single client. The pricing is not only based on volume, but it's also based on your negotiated rate. So you can see it begins to build in terms of its complexity because almost every deal can be different. So data hierarchy, and putting together your data management in a way that is consumable to your website while mixing in pictures, descriptions, marketing, product management, finance guys, it's pretty complex. And we do this, my expertise really runs from usually the 50 million, but right now, given the crisis, we're really reaching into the $20 million company. And then I work up to typically a billion is the largest client, which nowadays isn't that big a client, but typically up to $1 billion. Now, the interesting thing, and I'll stop with this. The other interesting thing is that supply chain is much more complex for a B2B company, right? Because I'm not just ordering a shirt in a dozen colors and a dozen sizes, and although that sounds like a lot of complexity, the truth is that we have min-max requirements for a part. Can I actually sell that part online, or do I need to figure out that it goes into my more value added products like my complete product or an assembly? So your supply chain will really need to be tightly integrated into your e-commerce, or no one likes to be told, oh, I sold you that, but I don't have it. So I like to call e-commerce and what I do really value chain re-engineering, right? And a lot of companies, and maybe this is a second thing, but that's what makes it different. The real issue today is, of course, because of the environment we're in now, everyone's realizing we need to quote unquote pivot. I've got traditional manufacturers who want to pivot into e-commerce, and that particularly presents some real challenges in terms of time to revenue, what it's going to do to your accounts receivable, and you can hear the language I'm using, right? It's not the typical marketer e-commerce language. I think what makes me successful as a B2B platform consultant and marketing consultant is that I can think through how every single department in a manufacturer or distributor is going to be impacted by the technology, not just understand that end client's technology of putting up a Magento website, for example.
What percentage of OEMs or middle manufacturers, companies that have product they could sell through B2B e-commerce, what percentage do you think are not, but they could be?
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest. In my opinion, I think that the United States lags Europe tremendously in this area. A lot of the really best software and solutions for B2B are coming out of Europe. They've been approximately 10 years ahead.
Is that
And
regulation for the most part as to why?
it's because they do a lot. If you think about it, the United States, if we're selling in English, French, and Spanish, we've covered all of North America, from Mexico all the way to Quebec, Canada, right? It's 3 languages, it's 3 currencies. In Europe, if you're in the EU, you have a lot of languages, 1 currency, fortunately, but of course, previous to that, it was more complex, and they had developed the ideas and systems to be able to do that. And then, of course, if they're going beyond the EU, which many of them do, you're exactly right. There are a lot of laws and regulations and different taxes, all have to be accounted for. So they've been dealing with a higher complexity on their websites for a little while. The second reason is that in the United States, and I specialize in the old school manufacturers in many cases, from castings to product assemblers, automotive, folks who have been really focused on just selling into large distributors. And they've been doing business the old-fashioned way, sales and channels. They've focused heavily on their supply chain software. They've not really focused on being omni-channel. So if I were to give you a number, which is what you asked for, right?
Just clarify that real quick, difference between the software, the actual procurement software, and being in B2B e-commerce?
Sure. Primarily, these folks use things called an ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning System. It'll handle your finances, your inventory, your part numbers, but they're notorious for, I have a client who has a kind of middle industry ERP, and it allows a total of Twitter length of description. It's got 120 characters. Characters. So if you wanted to put in a detailed description about what your product is and what it does, you can't use an ERP system. And a lot of people talk about that. Sure, we'll just connect up our front end e-commerce system. We'll just plug it into the ERP and away we go. Well, I can tell you, ERPs do not carry glossy photos of your product. It doesn't carry your technical drawings, and it certainly doesn't have anything to do with marketing. So we need to bring together a lot of other systems in which ERP is one. And it's critical, right? I mean, that is where you are running your.
Oh, I think we just lost Rob there for a second. either lost me or we lost Rob. Those of you listening, a reminder, you're listening to B2B Mentors, and make sure you subscribe, leave a review wherever you're listening. Make sure you go follow Rob, check out his event he has coming up. He's talking about all this in-depth B2B e-commerce strategy. Hopefully should be popping back in here in just a second. Oh, yeah, we lost him. Alrighty. Bear with us, folks. Technical difficulties. Beauty of Zoom. Those of you watching on Facebook, what's going on, guys? Say hey. Make sure you share the stream. Make sure you check out the podcast. We're now on iTunes and all the other major podcast apps. B2B Mentors. Give Rob a second here to jump back in.
Well,
leave us on a cliffhanger there, man. My goodness. Thought I'd never get the answers.
Yeah, my neighborhood is a little overloaded with people streaming from home, so I apologize about that.
No worries. No worries.
Yeah. So the answer is that we've got to integrate all of this information, right? And whether that's on Magento, Sana, BigCommerce, Shopify, it doesn't matter what the front end is. None of them are really designed and able to bring that much disparate information together quickly, right? So speed still counts, right? So if you think about a B2C situation, for every 1/10 of a second you drop your speed on mobile, you increase your conversion, which is the most valuable, right? On your total purchases, on your total revenue, you can increase it 1%. So speed is massive. And it's just as important on B2B systems, but we buy different, right? So they're not typically impulse buys. These are longer decisions. All right, I'll wrap it up so we can get back on track.
Yeah. Well, so what would a company need to do in order to start and grow and profit in B2B e-commerce?
Sure. And there are two answers. I'm going to give you two answers to that, right? So the typical, and if you will, right way is to, pull together your data from your ERP, your Adobe systems, your marketing, right? And we would have that live in what we would call a product information database or product information management system. Those include Perfion, Pimcore, Akeneo, Riversand. There are a bunch of them. And there are some differences, right? I mean, you need to think about what technology stack are you on, et cetera. But you begin to create your data hierarchy, make sure your SKUs are properly put together. And what happens is you almost always find holes in your information. You fill the holes, and then you begin to build your e-commerce front end. Now, I can tell you almost everyone starts the other way. They start with the e-commerce front end, then they figure out it's not working, and they call me.
And what does that mean, e-commerce front end?
So that might be a Magento, a Shopify, any e-commerce platform, right? And Magento is heavily built for B2B, but it just doesn't handle the complexity of those parts, right? You don't get as much breakdown. It also slows down, which makes sense. Loading things onto a website and it's all got to sit there as opposed to being called, it slows down. And we see that often with clients. I've got a $600 million client who, their response time was really quite unacceptable. It was over 10 seconds in their Magento. We've got it down to about a second, trying to drive it down a little further, but that was by putting in one of these product information management systems, pulling a lot of information and the variety off, and of course, creating a better hierarchy, and more importantly, better search, right? If people are just like anywhere, if you can't find it, you will not buy it. So that's true in B2B too. So, the thing is, we need to make part numbers searchable, manufacturing trade names searchable, um, you know, uh, special special labels, particular things that are usual in every industry. All of those need to be exposed. Now, once you do that, right, as well as the marketing and the rollout of all that, that's kind of the big picture way to do it. And typically that takes a bit of time. In the pivot environment that we're in right now, you don't have 6 to 8 months to do this, right? So what I have been working with my clients on is what I call the 80/20 rule. It's not my invention, but 20% of their products or less probably drive 80% of their revenue. So I just shrunk the effort, right, by 80%. Put the 20% of your products, get them rolling, get them up, get it perfected, and you can do that in essentially a much faster way. Then roll the rest of the complexity on. That's number one. So you compress the amount of time. The second thing is that we all know, whether you're B2C or B2B, if you put up a website, it's like putting up a sign in the middle of the Everglades. No one knows you're there until you start rolling ads, you send out emails, you do search engine optimization.
And this is all you're suggesting all through Magento. That's kind of the key platform that you would take your clients to.
I typically use Magento, right? And it's
what are the
probably,
others? Does
yeah.
Amazon count, B2B Amazon count as one of those platforms?
I was about to come to that, actually. That is a great question. So
Okay.
e-commerce platforms, BigCommerce, Sana, IBM has one. There are lots of them, right? Shopify is the largest player in the market.
Yeah,
right.
For B2B.
It can be B2B, right? Mostly it's B2C, but if you attach a PIM to it, right, you can use it. It's got tons of advantages. They're all great products for different things. In the B2B arena, the largest used e-commerce platform is Magento, hands down. Okay. Now, how does Amazon come into this? So if I've done an 80/20 effort, right? How do you get to revenue the fastest? Well, that's called syndication. If it comes off of your e-commerce website in managing it, or you directly put it up into these marketplaces, right? And there are three major ones right now that have obvious implications, and they are Amazon B2B, which is growing incredibly fast. It's obviously growing bigger, faster than their e-commerce platform for B2C, since that's mostly built out. But you can get your products onto Amazon B2B and get them in front of clients much, much faster than trying to put your whole new website up and doing things. Now it's limited, right? You're only going to be selling your products, end products, typically. Not really assemblies. You might sell parts, but that's the lowest value add of your business. The second one is actually, I have a special partnership with eBay. Believe it or not, they are trying very hard to figure out how do they relevantly compete with Amazon. And they believe business to business is an area that they can compete. Now, them having a a bidding mechanism actually is part of the B2B procurement landscape, right? One of the technologies I implemented back right around the year 2000 was reverse auctions and auctions for parts and goods. eBay has the opportunity to do that. The third one that is making a very hard entrance into the United States is Alibaba. Now, Alibaba is a Chinese company. It rivals the size of Amazon in China. And lots of us in the procurement world have been using it to pull in products from China. Alibaba is making an effort to enroll US manufacturers, US clients, to be able to work strictly within the United States. Now, some advantages, right? One, you aren't shipping things across the ocean from China. Secondly, so you now have a closer source, which never has been on Alibaba. The second thing they have that neither of the other two major competitors have is they have what's called an RFQ process, a request for quote. What this does is it puts custom manufacturers and service manufacturers, things like machine companies, casting companies, anyone who makes things custom for another manufacturer, suddenly can participate in e-commerce in a way they've never been able to do it before. So there's just some quick examples. There are other marketplaces, other auction sites, but obviously those are the three big brand names in this space.
Do you think there'll be more resistance to the US market given recent events from China to leverage a platform like Alibaba? I've heard other people talking about it. It's making waves, but now, I mean, if it's a Chinese company, it's owned by the Chinese government. So, what are the implications of that?
We don't know, right? I can tell you that US companies are signing up. They don't have as large a presence, right? But US companies are signing up. They have a presence in Europe already, so they have some unique advantages. And what we'll find out is whether those advantages are enough to overcome the idea. And let me say, I think the biggest problem for them is less that they're owned in China. It's more that the only thing anyone in the B2B world really thinks about them, I want to buy some China, right? I need a bunch of things to sell, so I'm going to go to Alibaba and buy 10,000, 100,000 of whatever it is. Changing that thinking is going to take some real effort on Alibaba's part. The one thing they have that is a real advantage, like I said, is the RFQ process. Mm-hmm. That doesn't exist on any other platform. So if it doesn't exist, they have a clear advantage there.
Is there room in the market to create a platform like that is US based, US owned? It's not Alibaba, but provides the same benefits that have been seen through Alibaba?
I think that eBay and Amazon are fully capable of doing those kinds.
Likely do it, right?
Right. I mean,
but why haven't they?
Well, their growth right now is phenomenal, right? So the problem of growth is, sometimes you focus on your knitting and you try to keep the reins on it. I think that Amazon's growth is absolutely so large in the B2B space. They're just
not even considering it.
I don't think so. As well as, to be honest, the value of those RFQs are far smaller than what Amazon is. It wouldn't make them as much money.
Do you know historically what the most sold B2B product is through e-commerce?
I do not. To be really
interested
honest,
to find that out.
Right.
It'd be interesting to find that out.
Yeah,
probably face masks now. Through hospitals or some sort of hospital equipment, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I can tell you, right, in terms of For example, I have as a client, the second largest gun and ammunitions distributor in the United States, and they're on par to do 600 million all on their website this year. So, that's pretty large, but I would suspect it's cell phones.
Hmm.
Distribution. So I have another client who's in the parts and well, not parts, I'm sorry, accessories. So the glass covers, the cases, the all the accessories that you would put onto your cell phone, they sell to the independent owned cell phone shops and distributors across the United States. And it's a really interesting business, and they do 1 billion on their website. So I don't know. My suspicion is it's some sort of electronics related company, right?
Makes
Um,
sense.
so
Definitely. Well,
yeah, I
Rob,
don't know.
anything
Yeah,
else you want to touch on that you think would be helpful for the audience to share as we start to wrap up here?
sure, absolutely. So what I think we ought to break B2B commerce down is really 4 things, right? And that is you need to understand your data. Everything starts with the parts and the data and what you sell to be able to organize that. Um, Most of them have a pretty darn good idea of who their customers are and what motivates them to buy and those relationships. What they're typically looking for is tremendous amounts of disruption. They're either looking to, so that's the second piece. Are you trying to cut out the distribution middleman and go direct to customer, which a number are, right? So I'll give you another quick example. Omega watches, they sell to distributors who sell to jewelers who sell to customers. You can go to Omega now and buy that Omega watch directly from Omega. They're removing the entire middle piece between them and the consumer. And that's new in the luxury market. So that's the second thing. What are you trying to accomplish? The third thing is, of course, how do you hook all that up? Just the just the technical know-how of taking what you're trying to accomplish, what your data is, and what you do, and building it. And the last piece is I did a video called why I stopped using Amazon. I haven't really, but the example is supply chain, right? We all have probably seen during this crisis that Amazon switched from my Prime being 2-day delivery out to 5 and 6 day delivery. Why? They didn't have it to sell. So what did I and a bunch of other people do? I went and checked out Walmart. And Walmart's supply chain was a tremendous advantage. So the last piece of B2B e-commerce is understanding your supply chain so that you don't miss out on your brand promise of whatever the delivery terms are. Because the difference between B2B and B2C is delivery terms are absolutely critical. It's not a consumer sitting at home waiting for some toilet paper. It's a manufacturer requiring and needing your parts to do their business. Those are the 4 pieces.
Rob, this has been really enlightening. And even from the conversation you and I had the other day, I am fascinated and going to continue to study the world of B2B e-commerce much closely as we progress into the future. I find it really, really interesting, and a lot of complexities to it that are really cool. You're able to highlight out. Real quick, talk very briefly about your conference that you have coming up, your event that you have coming up. How can people get into contact with you, follow you, find you, all the good stuff there as well?
Yeah. Thanks so much for that, Connor. Our conference is called the B2B E-commerce Success Conference. It's really pretty straightforward, and it will cover my 4 pieces of what I just talked to you about. Speakers: Brian Beck, former executive of Amazon B2B, has a book out, B2B Billions. Makes sense. Trish Keller, the CTO of Citizen Watches, is going to give us a great industry example of how they utilize e-commerce. Third speaker is going to be Scott Taylor, the data whisperer. I mentioned data is really important. And we're going to have a set of panels. Yeah, the whisperer, called Get Your Data Right. And we're going to have several panels, of which I'll be a panelist and many other experts will be panelists. This is a learning seminar. And you can go to one of my partner companies. So let me give you the quick, it's coreshopsolutions.com, coreshop, C shop, SHOP, solutions with an S.com. If you go there, there's a link, you push it, you can register. You can also find me on robneumann.com. My last name is Neumann, but it's robneumann.com.
Cool. So, and LinkedIn, use LinkedIn quite a bit too, right?
Yeah. And it's /in/Rob Neumann, same spelling. Actually, I love LinkedIn. Contact me on LinkedIn. You'll see the companies I'm involved in, my background, and I do answer, I like kind of talking about this because B2B e-commerce is the fastest growing e-commerce right now. It needs to be really honest, but it is
almost no one's talking about it. It's interesting. There's very, very little information, good information out there about it. So thank you for mentoring us through that. When is the actual event again, by the way, from today's date?
No, thank you. It's June 24th. From 11 to 3 Eastern time.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thanks again, Rob. Guys, make sure you go check it out. Check out the sites. We'll drop all the links and everything like that. And I'm going to end the live stream here. We'll see you over on the